Oh, yeah. There's a commitment.
You have to watch it.
Because all the roads are blocked up in the building, so there's only a couple of roads each side. You got to get lucky. Which one do you get? Yeah. Yeah, I came south, so I had to drive down to Cooper, over to Guadalupe, and then come back up. I was right down Gilbert. Well, it's something we're doing online stuff. Yeah, I live too close, so. And if I ever do it, if I'm ever streaming online, especially the photos, I have football on the background.
So I started the stream up, so hopefully it's sounding okay. People can hear me. And people can see my screen okay. I have Linux like JJ, so sometimes this can be difficult, more difficult than it should be. Streamer's good. Everything sounds good. Good. Got someone saying I can hear you. You probably see my whole screen too. I couldn't limit it, so you'll get to see all the fun stuff. Let's see. Real quick. Gonna test something out real quick. I know how to. Okay, cool. All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Now my screen, it's sharing the whole thing. I don't know how to limit it. So they're gonna see some of the lesson plan, which they shouldn't see, but that's okay. So my name is Carson. Obviously, JJ's out today, and I'm subbing for him. I'm one of the TAs in the July cohort, Monday, Wednesdays with Duran. If any of you met him, he's a fantastic instructor. It's been amazing working with him. And I've expressed interest in potentially becoming an instructor myself. So I said, hey, why don't you just come in, fill a spot. We'll see how you do. We'll send this video off to all the people at Trilogy and see how it goes. So this is kind of the test class. So hopefully I do all of you justice, and we have a great class today. A bit about me. I've been in the industry for about 5 years or so. I started in C#.net, very similar to how all of you are. Didn't have any real formal schooling on it. I was at ASU with a CIS degree, and they cover that's computer information systems. They cover a little bit of programming, a little bit of coding, but I really liked it. So I decided that I was going to take it to the next level, try to figure something out. I knew some people. They said they needed a junior dev, and I started there. And then I worked for some other companies doing more C#.net, and then started getting into JavaScript. couple years ago in Node.js development. Now I work for a company called Axosoft on a product called GitKraken. It's a Git GUI client, so I work a lot with Git, which I know you all have experience with now. It's kind of a beast, but we build the GUI to make it easier, especially for beginners. The entire stack is JavaScript with this product called Electron. It's Node.js in the background, but allows you to make GUI apps for your desktop with JavaScript and React. We use React, we use Redux. So all of the stuff you're learning in this course, we actually use for our native desktop app. So that's cool. I also do C and C++. So I do full stack, as full as the stack can get. I've done a lot of database administration. I've done a whole lot. That's pretty much the quick. If anyone has any questions about what we've been working on up until this point, intervals, timers, any of the other JavaScript stuff gone over, go ahead and ask now. We can cover it real quick before we start with the class. If not, the TAs and I will be here for after hours, and we can go over it then as well. And anything you've got with homework too. If you have problems turning in homework, let them know. They're great. So I'm just gonna be hanging out here with you guys today to get you going. So today is gonna be a little bit different of a class. We're going over some interview stuff, some technical interview, some problems that you might see in an interview, especially as a junior developer or someone who's coming right out of one of these boot camps. A little bit on visualization, a little bit on pseudo coding, and we will do some code, but not a whole lot. It's mainly just to get you all exposed to the problems you might see and how you should think about them. So the first thing we're going to do, we're just going to jump right into it, is we're going to do a little bit of visualization. Now, visualization is really important. Sometimes there won't be a clear answer, sometimes there won't be a good answer, and sometimes the interviewer just kind of wants to see how you think about problems, how you deduce an answer. And it's something that's really important as a developer as well. I think that's one of the greatest skills you can have, is how quickly you can deduce an answer with very little information. The better you are at learning, the better you are at being most things, but a developer specifically. So first thing we're going to do, let's partner up into groups of maybe 3 or 4 to kind of streamline it, just whoever's next to you, and we'll talk about it. What do you think the highest selling product at Walmart is? Now, Walmart has had a long history. They've sold tons of products. Try not to just pick something random. Try to think about the problem. Think about what happens when you walk into Walmart. What do you see? What do you feel? What do you go for? You've all been to Walmart most likely, or a similar store, Target, one of those big boxes. Try to think about what you think is the highest selling product. Don't Google it. Let's go with total revenue. What's the thing that they sell the most of? Or maybe quantity, If they sell something cheap, right, but they're selling hundreds of millions of units, that counts. So think about what you think people will buy the most. What are you most likely to buy when you walk in? And that's what we're going to do. So we'll do that for about 10 minutes, discuss it with your groups, and then we'll talk. I know. Maybe that. Whoa, too big.
Yeah, I didn't know there was 2 at 9. Also, I just turned it down like right on the dot. Like, oh, really?
The screen's too small.
It's over.
Okay, it doesn't matter what you're buying. I'm buying a TV instead of see it. I'm trying to be like, why not? Especially when it's $400.
That's what I think maybe you're on the right by the register.
This is how it looks again.
Okay, I'm going to pick a specific application window. And we'll see how.
Dude, I can log in.
How's it looking now? Do you want to log in and see how it looks? Streamers trying to change up the screen, see how it looks for y'all.
I did the crystal one like really early, and I was like,
Okay, that's not helpful. Let's see. Is that to everyone? Hit application window. Let's Speed of pain. Speed of pain, huh? Still got nothing. Just looking to do the entire screen.
I almost think that
Streamers, let me know what you can see.
go back to the where it was, the way you're presenting before.
This way? I wonder if you reload. I don't know why it's. Oh, that came up?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, again, that's the small view. It's hard to see. I don't know how he gets it to be the single screen. That's my big question. Try again really quick the single app.
I got a buddy. That works for Jason there.
We'll present to everyone. Give it a moment.
Oh, Will said it's been like this every time JJ's stream too.
Oh, he never has a single screen. Okay, that might just be. That's because we're using Linux. I think we don't get what Opto guys get. We'll see. Yeah, that's not very helpful. All right, might just have to deal with it for now, and I can try to fiddle with it during the next exercise. All right, I'm gonna have to fiddle with it a little bit later, streamers. Just see if I can figure something out, but we're gonna go ahead and move on. On the break, I will.
Checking out. Yeah. Are the days
Okay. All right, everyone. We're gonna go over this activity a bit. So we were trying to figure out some streaming difficulties, but I same issues. It's kind of weird, but we're gonna go ahead and talk about this activity then. So we're just gonna ask every group really quickly, and you're basically gonna give us what product you chose, why you chose that product. You know, what about that product makes it feel like it's something that's the highest selling product. So who wants to start? What group wants to start? Go ahead. What's your name, by the way?
Jeremy.
Jeremy? All right, Jeremy, what's up?
We were starting with we thought maybe it would be milk or eggs, but I think we kind of decided either. We're gonna go with the sodas at the counter. When you're there,
Okay.
you're just like, yeah, I'll take it. No matter what you're getting, I don't want another soda.
Okay, so group one says soda. Okay, that was a great explanation. Thank you very much. Who's next? What's your name?
I'm Jenny.
Jenny, what do you guys got?
We came up with paper towels and bananas. Should I give you two?
Pick one of those.
That
Pick,
sounds like a
No, it's not.
pick one of those and tell me why. Tell the class why. Diapers? So, which one of those three do you want to go with diapers? Why diapers? Everyone has babies. That's true. A lot of people have babies and diapers. You know, use a lot of diapers. That's a great answer. Awesome. Thank you very much.
We went with like a personal care product. I'll say toothpaste.
Toothpaste.
Because everybody, I'm trying to find something that everybody went got. Everybody gets different food, stuff, everything. But I'm gonna say personal care or toothpaste.
Okay, that's another fantastic answer. I like that a lot. It's definitely true.
We went with bananas mainly because I worked at a price at the cashier and most things I see come through are bananas.
Bananas? Okay, so personal experience, that's a great way to look at the problem. Most definitely.
First code they tell you to memorize it all. 4011, and never forget it.
Do we have another group out there that hasn't shared yet? What's your name? Adam? Beer? Why beer? Do I have to ask why? But looks like our streamers chose toilet paper. Was there anyone else who hasn't shared yet? What's your name?
Mike.
Mike?
We think like electronics, like TV or laptop.
Electronics? Okay.
There's probably still a lot of them. You gotta buy a new one every year.
Did we cover all the groups? Is that everyone? We got anyone else to share? Water? That's a great one, yeah. Water, I'm assuming because, it's pretty ubiquitous. I think everyone needs a little water, right?
We thought candy bars because it was right there at the register.
That's awesome, yeah. They're conveniently there. Candy, gum, those kind of things. Anyone else? Did we cover everyone? Awesome. Looks like we got everyone in there. So those are all fantastic answers, and I could see every single one being the actual answer. However, personal experience lends itself well because the answer is bananas. I mean, when you think about it, it makes sense, right? Bananas are cheap, really cheap, especially at Walmart, like 79 cents for a bunch or something. They're easy to eat. They're portable, right? They're in their banana peel. You just take it out and you eat it. They're nutritious. And I like bananas a lot. I actually buy bananas every week, so I probably help that. So yeah, that was fruit.
You get an avocado and sometimes why?
Yeah.
It's huge, it's rotten, but bananas, they're good everywhere.
Right. Yeah, bananas. It's easy to tell when they're rotten too, because they're
Banana bread.
brown. You can still use them when they're rotten. So they're I think they're amazing. Put them in smoothies. I love bananas. The second one, I have no idea they didn't put it in the instructions. So, it's I could Google it, but you thinking ice? That's another good one. I think all of these, pretty much all of these could fall into second or third, around those top sellers, because when you think about what you're going into Walmart to get, usually it's one food. I mean, Walmart might be a little different. Food is right there. It's by the entrance. It's easy to get to. Usually it's a produce too, and bananas are in a little cart that's like right there. So another reason why bananas are high up on that list. So those are fantastic answers. Round of applause for everyone, I think. Great job. Thanks for participating. So the important part of that exercise was understanding why we use visualization. Like, if no one Googled that answer or didn't have personal experience, it would have been a much harder thing to come up with, right? The one group that did get it right, so I saw a bunch of bananas being sold, kind of lent itself to the answer. But otherwise, no one else got it. Were very important to buy a lot, or seem pretty ubiquitous to everybody. So they all made sense. Sometimes you're going to have problems in an interview that are like that. You're not going to know the answer. You may not even be able to find the answer. Kind of wants to see how you think about the problem. Like, what is important about the solution? How did you come to that solution? Why did you come to that solution? You get a really hard algorithm. You can't solve the algorithm. How are you going to deduce how to get to the solution, if anything? So visualizing problems it's a really important skill to pick up. It's probably going to lend itself better to the behavioral side of interviews, but it's still very important because the interviews are expansive these days. So fantastic. I think those are all great answers again. Thanks for participating. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to the next exercise. This one we're just going to do in pseudocode. We're going to have a little bit more time to do it because it's kind of a complex problem. You can use similar groups if you like, and we'll get a few of you to participate afterwards with what your answer would be. So I would take some time to definitely write down how you would solve this in words. Don't worry about writing the code, like I said. So I'm going to scroll down here and show you the instructions, and if the TAs, if they have access to them, if they could Slack them out and Slack as well. But we have an array of 51 cards. Let me make this bigger. We have an array of 51 cards. Each card contains two properties, the suit and the title, or ranking, whatever you want to say, however you classify that. There are 52 cards in a deck, so we have to figure out which one is missing. And you have to figure this out in the most efficient way possible. So that's our goal for the next 15 minutes. We're going to try to figure out the most efficient way to determine what card is missing in that deck using pseudocode. Afterwards, we'll talk to a few groups. We'll see how they came to their solution, and we'll discuss that a bit. All right, so let's get going. Streamers, I will use the same group as well, however you did it for the last one. And then you can participate when we're done.
Yeah.
I know. I woke up at 8 here. We went to
So I think what I would do is I make 4 dishes and have it run into the array and make each primitive and then now like if
go into stuff and say and fly.
Oh, so there's this thing Josh is alluding to. Right here. Right here. Define where user is. So do that right in the course too. Yeah. Against the sports units.
Yeah.
You should have push-ups.
There's a sort method.
Should have 13. Maybe you run maybe 4 in.
One thing you're all welcome to do while you're thinking about this problem, if you want to use the whiteboard, if you've got markers in here, to like write down your pseudocode even with your group, if it's easier for you, feel free. We did that in our class and people seem to really like it. So don't hesitate from using the resources in the room.
We're good on time.
It's good. It's awesome. Sometimes it's pretty easy to get off track. This is an easier class to stay on. I don't think they're going to ask a ton of questions yet. Yeah.
Feel free to yell and a lot of people here.
I think that like if you run 4 if statements, if includes or if includes
Yes. No.
or push to an array. And then, right, I got it. So 4 if statements, if it includes C. Support statements to push to an array. Push.
No. The last activity was one activity after so it's like a good one.
On there, we're gonna console log the recorded array length.
As opposed to how many items I have.
Yeah, that's why we have, it's a tough one, but we'll be able to go over. Yeah, we'll have everything fine for you. The last one is listed here, so.
And then, or you don't even need to, you don't even need to do that, you can just do another if statement. That array is less than 13. That was this one. Print console log that array. Yeah. Yeah, so for if statements to push to an array, so if had the digits of the spades push to an array, so you have an array of just spades. And then from there, you're going to have 4 times spades plus, yeah. From there, you're going to run a statement. If the array, like, if these two arrays is less than 13, then you're going to console log that array. And then, I mean, is that still too much work to figure out how to that? Just kind of I feel like that's pretty good right there. I know it'll be a lot of work, but you could go like, you know, if it includes the king, console log things there. If it includes, I mean, that's a lot of code. That's a lot of code, but you could write that out. And you could write out 13 more. But I feel like that's. Maybe you could also create a variable that has every single part value, so like 2, 3, and try to, and your last thing could be something where it'll tell you which is missing index, or which index is there. You don't necessarily have a variable for each thing. You can just do like this. You can create like a global variable where it's just like 2, 3, 4, all the way through ace. And then this would just be your index of 0 on the array. Where this would be your index of 12. And that would could you be able to figure out what missing index like a function. Away. So you'd have to create new array.
We'll use a couple more minutes, then we'll start going over a few of these potential solutions.
you have the array. So if the card contains spade, you push to the same spade. Yeah, you don't even need words. You can do like an if, else this, else that, else that. So yeah, if card is that, and then like your certificate statement is going to be if. Yeah, if like spades array. Yeah, you might actually.
Yeah. Like the calculator.
Yeah, we didn't use the political side.
But then,
Right before we get started, if someone in your group could transcribe your pseudocode to maybe just some text in Slack so we can Slack these out too, that'd be fantastic. So then our streamers can see all of your potential solutions as well. And then like one more minute, we'll start talking about it.
Oh, really? Yeah, they suggest you take care. You went to that They help you move into like a different area.
All right, let's go over this exercise. So, does anybody feel super confident in the solution and want to share with us how they got to that solution? Anyone? Anyone willing to share?
Came up with an idea.
You came up with an idea? That's great. That's all we need is an
Way
idea.
to implement this idea. We have an idea.
All right, let's hear it. If you wouldn't mind, when you're done, pasting it in Slack for the streamers, that'd be fantastic.
Sure.
Thank you.
What we have is there's 51 cards, 4 classes. I figure there's 13 cards of each. So we had some type of a for loop that would go through and check based on they'll go through and basically check on each suit. So if you have full 13 hearts, eliminate those. We don't need those anymore because all the cards are there. And then run through. If you have 13 diamonds, eliminate those. Run through. Keep going through that process until you get to one of the groups that has only 12 cards. And then we can run similar for loop again, but instead of going through and checking for 13 of the same suit, start doing it based on the name of the card or the number value of the card.
Okay.
So if we have 4 aces, eliminate them. 4 twos, eliminate them. It'll just run through that process until we come up with one group that has only 3.
Okay.
And then we know what we're missing.
So if I got that right, your strategy is you're going to go through a for loop over the different groups of suits. And you're going to find the first groups that have 13 cards, the full 13, and eliminate those. And then on the last pass, you're going to find the group that has 12 eventually. And then you're going to go through that and try to account for the numbers or the type of card, and you'll find the one that's not in that list.
Yeah.
Correct? That's awesome. That's a great solution. Everyone, let's give them a hand. Good work. Does anyone else want to share? We'll go over one more, and we'll talk about it a little bit. Someone's got to share. I saw your hand kind of go up.
It's dumb, but
No, there's no dumb answers.
like have an actual 52 deck and then just do an index of it through the previous array. So you have the array of the answer key and then you index through the previous array. Theoretically, there should be only one thing different.
Okay, so we go through and compare each one. You'll have an answer key array, and then you'll have the array of the cards that are missing one, and you'll just go and match them up.
Yeah,
1 to 1.
Whatever's not there should get spat out again.
Okay, and how are you going to determine what the last card is?
I don't know.
Potentially remove them from the key array or something. There's a lot of ways you can answer this, so it's definitely not like one solution to do it. But that was an awesome answer. That's a really great way you could do it as well. Let's give him a round of a hand. A round of a hand. I don't know why I said that. Round of applause. Let's give him a hand. Okay, so for this particular exercise, we're not actually going to talk about a legitimate solution. So if you wanted to know one, feel free to Google it after class or Google it and check it out. Really what we wanted to nail down is how do we pseudocode these problems? How do we think about these problems in maybe small steps, or how do we visualize them to try to come up with a solution? Because again, you're going to get problems like this in an interview where you may not be able to find the answer in the time that's allotted for that interview, and the interviewer may not even care. They may just say, hey, tell us the steps that you thought about. For instance, let's build an array that has all of the proper cards, because we know what cards need to be in a deck of cards, right? And then we have the array of a missing card, and we're going to go through and we're going to match them up one by one. And we're going to figure out which card is missing. If you can lay out those steps appropriately and you can visualize that problem, demonstrate to the interviewer that you can think about the problem in a very programmatic way, and 2, you might actually find the answer, in which case it's the best possible scenario, right? So it's important to be able to utilize these visualization skills, utilize the ability to break down these problems into smaller steps. That's really going to help you all in your interviews moving forward. So one of the things we're going to do really quick before we move on to another exercise is talk about interviews and what exactly they're like. I've been through a few interviews myself, and I've also interviewed people myself. Usually, you'll have the behavioral component that everyone's pretty familiar with. Most interviews will have that, right? Where, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are your greatest strengths? All the really kind of lame questions that usually get hurled at you, and you have to come up with some witty response that makes you sound really good, or doesn't make you sound so bad, or something. There's usually always that, and that varies significantly based on the company. Some people maybe won't even have that. Some people will really care what your answers are in the behavioral. It's so different. I can't tell you what it's going to be like at any company. I just can't. Even at the company I work for now, they could change it every week for all I know, or ask you a different question. It's really hard to nail that down. And the big reason for that is interviewing is incredibly difficult. So, they don't really totally know what's going on, and they might have an idea of what they like to see, but the behavioral part is a challenge in its own right. May not need to know technical details of anything, but you have to talk real well. You have to really present yourself in a very fine light. There's only so few things you can say, before they could take a negative connotation to something you say. So those are tough. One of the things, the other part of the interview that a lot of developers stress about is the technical interview. So most companies will also have a technical interview. I haven't been to one that didn't. Granted, doesn't mean they all will. And the technical interview is usually a couple of problems similar to one we've done so far, like the 51 cards in a deck, and some that we will do following this. Simple problems sometimes, hard problems sometimes, problems you may not know the answer to. And again, the skills we're trying to portray here in today's class are you don't necessarily need to know that answer. You need to figure out how to figure out that answer, which seems a little bit more difficult. But in reality, that's what your job boils down to at the end of the day. Personal experience of mine, I had my first job, the first job I got as a developer. My interview was getting lunch with the owner of the company, and he said, hey, you're a cool dude. Just come do this. And I was like, okay, great. And I was young, so I had never done it professionally. I had been coding for maybe 6 months, like you all will be after this class. And he just so happened to like me, and that's how I started. And it's very possible that that could happen to one of you. After that, I had an interview where it was a small technical test. Here's some questions about the languages we're working in. Do you know what this keyword means? You know what this keyword does? So it's simple. They didn't have these technical problems of, hey, here's an actual problem you have to solve. Solve it for me. It's more of just what's my general knowledge. You'll also get those. And then the last job I have now, we had an intense whiteboarding session for 2 hours where it was, here we have a linked list. You need to determine if the linked list is cyclical and all these algorithms and data structure things that were a little bit out of my realm of expertise because I don't have a CS degree. I just kind of started off the street, just say, hey, I want to program. So you'll see a myriad of different types of technical interviews. To impart one piece of advice, it's be confident and fake it till you make it. Realistically, that works. If you're confident when you hit with these technical questions, sometimes you can solve them by pure luck because you're there, you can ask questions, you're confident, you know what you know, and it happens.
So what you do if you didn't learn English? You ask for help?
Yeah, definitely. Always ask for help. So they may not care that you ask for help. They may care. Some companies will depending on the problem. But yeah, I'd be like, hey, what exactly do you mean? What was that?
Can you Google it in front of them? You're like, this is what I would do anyway.
Well, mine. So again, that depends on the problem you're solving. There actually are some people who will have an interview where maybe it's a take-home thing. Hey, build this for us. In which case, yeah, use Google to its fullest extent. Or maybe it's just type this on a laptop, and you can ask, can I use Google? I had one like that. And I said, can I Google how to do this? And they were like, no, don't Google that. And I was like, okay, well, I won't. Sometimes it'll just be on a whiteboard where they'll literally say, here's the question, write some code for us to the best of your ability, without using a computer to solve the problem. And obviously in that case, you don't have a laptop, so you can't Google it. But asking questions is a very important part of the interview, behavioral and technical. Ask as many as you can and ask deep, kind of impactful questions because it'll make them think you're actually thinking about the job, thinking about the company, and you care, right? So yeah, asking questions in the technical part is perfectly acceptable.
So you got your first job just like 6 months of
Did
you walk into that job not knowing anything, or?
No, so I had a couple classes on C#. So I started in C#.NET development, and I liked it. So I did a little bit on my own outside of class to get a little bit better, a little bit ahead of the class. And I knew I wanted to go into that field. So I knew a guy, and he said, hey, you seem like a smart kid. You don't have a lot of experience, but this guy just needs a junior dev. So I knew a little bit, but I knew nothing about the stack he was working in. It was C#, but it was all this web development stuff that I had never done. It was a really old code base. So I had some of the foundation down, but I didn't have practical experience with that application stack.
So you learned a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you probably learn 90% of what you know on the job. And then it's up to you to fill in the other 10% at home. You're going to want to cover things at home that you won't see at work. There's lots of things I do at home working with esoteric languages or other data structures and stuff like that I don't do at work ever. But because I learn those at home and I'm familiar with them and I sometimes get good at those, I could go into a new interview and they could say, hey, do you know about this weird thing that 5 people use? I'd be like, wow, I know that because I'm one of those weird people who just decided to figure it out. That's a great thing to do. If you can stay dedicated outside of work and just pick up a little extra, it's only going to help you. But you definitely learn the most at work. You're kind of thrust into the situation, right? You have to. Right? That's how it works. Any other questions on this before we move on? We've got another exercise we're going to hit. No? Cool. So,
What would be your
cards?
Yeah.
So there's a few ways you could do it. There are some really tricky, weird ways that you can use bitwise operations to manipulate it and make it work. So you find one. And I don't know those off the top of my head because I never do that. But if you knew the sum of so all of the cards added up 1 to 13, depending on how you know it was worth, and you knew you could turn the suits into their own value as well. 2 equals this, 3 equals 3 equals hearts or whatever. You can sum those as you're going through the loop and looking at all 51 cards, and then you'll come out with a number that's less than the maximum sums, and then you can just convert it back. And then you know. And so you can do it in one for loop. It's pretty easy to do. It takes a little bit of thought to get there, right? And I also have years of experience solving these kinds of problems to kind of get me there. But it's possible to do it. It's just about. You know, it's really hard to visualize that too. You're like, how can I do this? But you have to use everything you have to kind of figure it out, you know? How I would approach it. I actually did that one before I came to class to see how I could get it done. So, moving on. Some fun. Here, let me move these down. Some things. So sometimes in your technical interviews, the interviewer just wants to know literal, practical stuff you know. Like, I want to know if you know what this function does. And that's okay. Sometimes you'll be quizzed on that, especially if you rely on those technologies and those functions or whatever every day. So we'll go over this together. Can anybody tell me what the command in your bash is to create a file? Touch. That is exactly correct. All right. Let's see. I'm going to pick someone at random on this one since everyone chimed in on that. What is the command to create a folder? What is your name? Was that? Donnie? MKDIR, make dir. Great. What is a command to delete a file? Let's see. Raise hands. Anyone want to take a stab at this one? RM? Yep, RM is how you delete a file. Good job. What is the command to delete a folder? RMDIR, is that what I heard?
RM dash capital R?
It's RM dash
Just R.
R. RM dash R. Does anyone know what the dash R means? It means...
Actually, I do know this. It recurs, and so it runs itself through until every single thing is moved.
Awesome, yes. The dash R stands for recursive because it finds everything in that directory, and if there's nothing in the directory, it can give it to the directory. So yeah, RM dash R. I don't know why they capitalized. Who knows the command to move a file? What was that? MV? MV, that's exactly it. Move, nice and easy. Know the command to copy a file. I heard some whispers. CP, I heard some CP. Who says it's CP? Yep, a few of you. Come on, let's bring up the energy, guys. CP, yes, CP is correct. What is the command to go up one directory? CD dot, that is exactly right. What is the command to list the files in a directory? Everyone got that one, that was awesome. What is the command to see what directory you're currently in? PWD, perfect. And does anyone know what typing history does? Without typing it, really quick, don't do that. Gives you the history of your previous commands. That's absolutely correct. Thank you all for participating. Let's give everyone a round of applause who did. That was awesome. I know this is kind of a boring activity, right? We're just going through these commands and we know most of them, but it's really important that you focus on the simple technical stuff that helps you get your job done. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and move on real quick. Did you have something, Caesar? Oh, it's dot dot. I'm sorry. I typed that wrong. Yep, it is dot dot. It is not dot.
And it's CD space dot dot, right?
CD space dot dot. Yes. We're going to move on to one of the more technical questions, and we're actually going to start writing a little bit of code. At least we're going to give it a shot. Famous problem among developers and that is the FizzBuzz problem. In case anyone has heard of that. Has anyone heard of FizzBuzz before? It's kind of a buzzword, no pun intended. So FizzBuzz is a problem that seems simple, but can actually be more difficult than you think. So I'll explain it real quick, and then we'll go ahead and give it a shot for 20 minutes or so. All right? So FizzBuzz, again, extremely common. The point behind FizzBuzz is you have a list of numbers. If you find a number that is divisible by 3, like 3, 6, 9, you print the word buzz. If you find a number that's divisible by 5, like 5 or 10, you print the word buzz. Did I say fizz for 3? I said that wrong. So for 3, you print fizz. If it's divisible by 5, you print buzz. Be divisible by both 3 and 5, you print the full fizz buzz. Otherwise, if it doesn't meet any of that criteria, you're going to be just printing the number. So you can imagine you have a list of maybe 100 numbers, and you find 3, you're going to print fizz. You find 5, you're going to print buzz, and so on and so forth. So that's your challenge. We're going to try to do fizz buzz. Once we're done, we're going to run it, and we're going to see how it works. We're going to like visualize how it goes down. I'm going to step through the code one line, and we'll figure it out. So give this a shot. Try to run it in your browser, just on the HTML page, a script tag. So, any questions? I don't be, but it's fine. You can work in partners. It's okay. Stream sound is gone. Streamers, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Let's see. Go ahead and send me a message if you can hear me. And if I don't get anything, I'll assume it's now back. Okay. I muted and then unmuted the stream, so that might have done it.
Going back to like with this, it'll just run it. Right, okay. I've only tried to figure out. But now I'm trying to put it, I'm maybe I'm not doing it, like, let's step 1, 2, step 3, back, I got something to work that didn't really. So, I'll get it, and that's what
Yeah.
this part is doing this. And then I can get into that. Basically, I'm saying we're an easier way than having to write the entire issue.
All right.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Well, yeah, right here, around everything. So that well, I wanted to do it for every single. It's right here, my disabled display page right here. This is what display page there. And then I have it where if there's more questions left in the range. Actually, it's true. All the way to the edge. And then it'll see that. And eventually I'm gonna have that jump to a whole new page where it'll display the result. I'm just having trouble with this function now that I went back and realized that after you click every question, it's supposed to display the correct answer. This is display page I want to eventually display the correct answer was, and probably give you a track of what, you know, you got this right. Yeah, like a status page. Maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I tried doing it where I would just call source and selection function. But what happened was all of this, it would run the question in the background, but you wouldn't see it on the page. I'll show you what it uses. Because I created this new page. But this is what.
That's one thing I don't see.
Yeah, I was thinking that was.
That's what I wanted to do.
The number of bits and then I-
Well, it really works. So like, here I've got like a timer, I've got a timer function. Then after 2 seconds, just move on to the next one. That's what this will do. So you can see.
That's running in the background.
Yeah, you can see in the, yeah, you can see in the console that it's gonna continue. And I have another one, you can go on and question. So those. Oh, I think very well. Oh, like how many? And I'm only doing it. This is ideally what I want. Not, well, it's not what I want, but it's not working. Yeah, so click on this, it goes to display page. You'll see in the console. It's not. And another question.
Oh, that's good.
Another one. Dry, where my question, I set up little variables up here to grab the different HTML elements of question. And I set up my question array objects. So I've got the question, answer choice, correct answer. Exactly. So this function will take all these different arguments. This is a question. One, do the parameters. The first one.
I guess when I say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First precedent. Whatever. And then I set up a data value so that it would match with what gets passed through. Right here. So what I would do,
I get this back.
and then after the which the next question variable if the I just did J is less than question A, it's going and what it does. Yeah, this will keep firing.
Where's the part where you?
That was that's the plan. Yeah, down right there. Yeah, and basically what next question, the next question, so you see the different parameters that drop into here. And next question is update the iteration of the question bank. So it just updates these parameters. That's what this next question does. Yeah, but it gives you the index of, this index to that index to this index. So this is all within, this trivia is all within an object. So, to initialize the game, I set the index of iteration to 0. And I call question 1, which will give me trivia J, will give me the index of question, trivia give me the question, this is index 0, the first answer is 0, and so on. This is all working, it's all fired in the background. I'm just not sure where this display page because I want it to go back to the next question, which in theory, what I would think would be this next question function.
That should be changing.
Yeah, exactly. It should be changing. It's not changing the comment. It should be updating the iteration and it should be changing the comment. Actually, it's calling it's running index or whatever. And I don't feel like it's yes, especially for like and yeah, I will. Do you want me to uncomment out the stuff you're working on, or just leave it as it is? Okay. Just kind of go through it. Okay. Because it's not you still grab it on it, just set it up as, grab ID, question, grab ID. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. Around this.
Yeah. Let me see.
I think you're right. Trying to push everything. Or they're trying to push everything that is in your
Yeah, what's good?
You complained that all these I work for and there's always sorry.
We're going to spend 5 more minutes on this, and then we'll go over some solutions.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was with them. But this
Why are you saying
yeah. I guess it's taking away anything we have. But yeah, I guess that's it's honestly it's only gonna be an entire line. Yeah. No, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I also
Just the CS 101. Yeah. Yeah, this was, I think it was like chapter 2, it was the first exercise. And yeah.
Good job.
Thanks.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
You Googled it?
I took 2 things.
You did it all in one line. Come on.
Because when I was writing this so long, I wanted to see the specific code example, but I picked that apart.
Display the number and grade,
I found a lot of them. Yeah.
I want to see.
Well, I did.
All right, one more minute and we'll go over it.
So this is not. What that does is find yeah, right. So what happens here? This is really interesting way of doing it. But
All right, let's go ahead and go over FizzBuzz. So hopefully most of you got close to a good solution, or even some of you got the solution, or something that you're proud of, at least, that you'd like to share. Is there anyone who would like to demonstrate their code? You can Slack it to me and come up here and we can see how it works. Yeah, go ahead. Send me Slack your code into the Saturday instruction channel. I'll pick it up and see how it works.
like that.
All right. So just drop it in here real quick. Okay, so it's Ravi, right? So Ravi sent me some code. It seems like he's got a great solution. We're gonna go ahead and run it. We're gonna see what it does, and then we can go ahead and look at the code real quick. So I have a JS file attached, link to this HTML file that has a FizzBuzz function, and we'll run it. So FizzBuzz. For 3, we print fizz. For 5, we print buzz. For 6, we've got fizz. For 7 and 8, we have the numbers. For 9, we have fizz. Again, that's divisible by 3. 10, we've got buzz. 12, and then 15, we've got FizzBuzz. Let's go ahead and look. Let's look at the numbers real quick. Might be hard for the streamers to see, and I'm sorry.
Oh, we're not seeing it on that screen.
Oh, that screen either. Oh, jeez. Okay. Let's look at it again. I'm sorry about that. So let's look at the numbers he's got printed. I know this is really small. Let me see if I can zoom a little bit. It doesn't zoom the console. That's a bummer. All right. Well, the important thing to note here is he does have it looks like the proper solution. It's printing FizzBuzz for divisible things that are divisible of 5 and 3, fizz for numbers divisible of 3, and buzz for numbers divisible of 5. So let me go ahead and open up the code here. Ooh. So inside of this function is what he sent. And so we can look and see that we have a nice for loop here from less than or equal to 100, starting at 0. So starting at 0, if you're technically doing this in an interview, they may want you to start at 1 or whatever, right? So you don't print FizzBuzz for 0 because it'll return 0, you know? But that's not like a problem with the solution at all. So let's check. We have if I, and then if anyone's not familiar with this percent sign, that's the modulo operator. And what it does is it divides the first number by the second number and returns the remainder. So to check if something's divisible, you'll do A modulo B equals 0, then you know A is divisible by B. In this case, starting at 0, or starting at 1 rather, 1 modulo 3, you're going to get 1 back because 1 cannot be divided by 3. And so it won't hit the fizz operator, and it won't, it's 1's also not divisible by 5, so it's not going to hit FizzBuzz that we have right here. And so you can see he's got these checks in here a couple of times, right? He's got divisible by 3 and divisible by 5 for fizz buzz, then divisible by 3 for fizz, and then divisible by 5 for buzz. Now, can anyone explain, aside from Ravi, since he wrote this, why he has this first check is checking both?
You don't want it to print fizz on, you don't want it to print fizz and then have to go back and overwrite it to try to print fizz.
Right, you don't want it to print fizz, then buzz, then fizz buzz for
Yeah.
15, right? So you have to check first, and you have to make sure nothing else happens after fizz buzz is printed. So this is an awesome solution. Let's give Ravi a round of applause. Great solution. So one of the things about fizz buzz is there's a bunch of ways you could solve it. There's another way that's pretty classic to solve it as well, where you have a string, you set it equal to nothing, and then if you're divisible by 3, you add fizz. If you're divisible by 5, you add buzz, and then you print the output of the string. If the string's empty, after you do those checks, you just print the number, right? And so that way, you can kind of just check the 3 and the 5 one time, divisible by 3 and the 5 one time, so it's slightly more efficient. And while it doesn't matter in this context, because this is a super trivial problem that doesn't need efficiency, sometimes people will be like, wow, that's amazing. You cut down one line of code. Developers are like that. They're kind of finicky. Like, oh, you did this in 5 lines of code. I did it in 4. I'm better than you. And you're like, oh, that's not exactly how it works, especially if it's more readable. Now, what I like about Ravi's solution is it's very readable. We know exactly what's happening, right? So it's easy to deduce what's going to happen. That's a great way to solve a problem, especially if you're new to it. It's fantastic. Write it out as many steps as you need to make the problem easy to understand and easy to break down. So I think this is a great solution. Did a fantastic job. We're going to go ahead and move on to another problem that's similar to this. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, though. So is everyone in this class familiar with what a prime number is? Yeah, prime numbers? If you're not, we'll Slack out a link for you. But basically, a prime number means it can only be divided by itself and 1. It can't be divided cleanly by anything else, meaning it has no, you can't modulo by anything and get a 0. So what we're going to do is write a function that checks to see if a number is a prime number or not. We're going to have it return true if it's prime. We're going to have it return false if it is not. Now, this is a really hard problem to solve. So we're going to spend the first 5 minutes just pseudocoding. I just want you to think about the problem, write it down on paper, write it down in text, however you want to write it down. And then after that 5 minutes, we'll go ahead and try to crack it with real code. And then we can go ahead and go over the solution to that one as well. So let's give it a shot. We've got about 20 minutes. And yeah, figure it out. TAs, if you could Slack up the FizzBuzz solution and the FizzBuzz video. There's a little video on it too. I just Slacked out a link for everyone. It goes over what prime numbers are in case you want to double check if you don't quite remember or my explanation wasn't good enough. Sometimes I don't explain things quite the best. So. All right, so if you've been pseudocoding, trying to figure this out just on pen and paper real quick, I would now try to move over to code and try to write the actual code to solve this problem.
Prime numbers of square roots, right? So this is 300 out every number. Another prime. Yes. So you can check if you use square root. Square root. So if it has a square root, it's not prime. Yeah. So full reality square root is just equal to it. Good. No. Well, that's the. This every time. The number would have to be. Yeah, by itself, like, they can be divisible. Sure, there's some mathematical thing that explains that you can, it's findable. If I could write a code that generates this, it'll check the two as well. Unless there's a code that I can run to this.
Tuesday and Wednesday, we're here. Monday. Yeah, right.
We're going to give this a couple more minutes, and then we'll go over a solution. All right. Does anyone have a solution that they think either solves the problem in an efficient way, solves the problem in general, or they're really close, they want a little help? Does anyone have anything that they'd like to share on this? We can go over it line by line as a class. Did anyone get the solution, first of all? Yes? No? Maybe? Someone got a solution? You got a solution, I want to talk to you. We're going to start calling random people. I found a list of all your names, unfortunately for you. So if I don't get a volunteer, I'm going to call someone. No one? No one? All right. You got one?
I got an idea.
Got an idea? Slack it to me and then come up here and let's go over it.
All right. It doesn't do anything, but it's just like support this idea already.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at this function is prime. I'll take that, I'll copy it. You want to come over here, Landon?
Yeah.
All right, so Landon was willing to submit to us a solution that he's pretty confident in, right? And we're going to go over it. We're going to go over it. Landon's going to tell us line by line in his in prime function what his thoughts were, why he thinks it's going to solve the problem. And yeah, so give us the lowdown, Landon. What was that? Can I zoom in? Yeah, probably. Is that better? You guys want a little?
There we go.
So I Googled it. Some Greek dude like thousands of years ago thought of this. Like legitimately like 340 BC or something like that. So basically it's that you're gonna check all the way down here is kind of where it happens. You got your value I here set it to 2, and kind of the idea is you iterate through square roots that every number that is not prime will have a square root, right? 4 is 2, you know, their square root is 2, 81 has a square root of 9, so on and so forth. Any number that's prime doesn't have a square root. So you can go through everything, checking if I multiplied by I and get you the same value as j. With someone's code that I pretty much followed online, that's the idea behind it, is you're checking for square roots as you go down the list. I don't know, it doesn't do anything though, so.
What about this top one is prime?
I don't know, actually. The bottom one is the one that I was doing, and the
Okay.
top one apparently makes it work somehow.
Okay. Well, the bottom one sounds like, I forget exactly what it's called, something sieve of someone, right?
Yeah, the Siva, whatever.
Yeah. I forget exactly the name too. I can never pronounce
I
it.
don't know.
So yeah, you're really close on point. That's a solution. It definitely does work. There's a lot of code here. So you can see this solution, while it probably works, probably a little bit complicated, right? So is there a way that we can take that solution and we can pare it down even further? So you're on the right track with the square roots. So tell me a little bit more about the square roots.
There's a JavaScript function, math.square root.
Math.square root.
Which was cool.
Okay.
Found that online. Here's math.square root value. I got this one off of Mozilla, this whole thing right here, checking on the square root values. The idea is down here, it'll also console log it, and you're going to iterate the numbers. The thing I was worried about is I don't know how to make it stop iterating through numbers.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to like blow up my computer, because I know that there's theoretically unlimited prime numbers.
Yeah.
And so a computer
forever.
can just keep iterating it forever. I don't know if that's why it doesn't do anything. I wasn't trying to make it stop after a certain point. Maybe
Well,
if you had parameters you could enter, like,
sure.
please ask for prime number up to whatever, because that's actually how the original one works, is you enter up to 100 and then it goes through checking, is it divisible by 2, is it divisible by 3, so on and so forth.
Right.
That's kind of the end.
So in this is prime function, you can see it has a return. If it is divisible by 0, it returns false. And that's a nice way to jump out of a function quickly. And it's a very good programming practice to basically say, hey, we found some scenario in which case there's no other answer anymore, right? So it's divisible by I. We have a 0 remainder with the modulo. Obviously, it's not a prime. We can just return false. We know already. And then you don't have to worry about iterating over a bunch of other numbers, especially if you pick a huge prime number. You know, it could take forever. So one of the things when we're trying to solve these problems is we try to deduce how we could make the answer more efficient. So this is prime function here. It works. Technically works, right? You're checking every number up to that specific number to see if it's divisible by anything. And if it is, well, it's obviously not a prime. However, there's some more properties of numbers. Now, one of the things that trips people up in this problem is we think about quick, quirky code ways that we can make it more efficient, but is that necessarily what we need to do? If we think about some of the other properties of numbers, so a quick one is every number that's even, for instance, has a perfect even half, right? Or maybe not even be an even half, but it has a half, and it's divisible by that half, correct? And an odd number will also have a half, but we don't count that because it's not an integer, it's some float or something. So because it has a half, every number has a half that it's divisible by. If it's even, you can immediately cut it in half. So we can immediately say value divided by 2. We don't need to go any more than that to determine if it's prime. If we get to half and it comes out to be, 0, well, then obviously it's not a prime. But if we get to half on like an odd number, that number isn't going to fit nicely into this for loop because I is incrementing by 1 every time, so it'll be greater than the half, and then we won't have to worry about that check. So that's the first way you can limit this down. Now we're checking half as many numbers, right? But there's another property of numbers that can take you even further, and that is the square root that Landon was telling us about. You actually only have to check the square root of the value to determine up to the square root of a value to determine if it's actually prime or not. You don't have to go any further than that. If you think about it like an even number will have a half, right? But between the square root and the half, there's absolutely no other combination of numbers that can make it divisible. So, you have 10. Between 2.5 and 5, is it divisible by anything else? No. Between 2.5 and 5, it's not. Up to 5, it is at 5. And below 2, below 2.5, it is by 2. But otherwise, there's nothing in the middle there. And over half, there's obviously nothing that's divisible by there. So that's kind of a way, if you think about the numbers, you can incrementally get to this point. So if you start with, oh, well, we just go ahead and we modulo every single number. Okay, that's great. We go through every single number. Now if we think about even numbers have a half, well, over a half, can you really divide it by something that's greater than its half? I mean, it's a weird thing to think about, but if you ever think about that with a number, can you? No, you can't. to get a clean 0 remainder. And then you can think about it even further and take it to the next level with the square root. Think about the half and the square root, how they're related, how the number's related, and you can say, oh, well, I guess we don't need to check greater than the square root. If there's a square root that it has, it's an even number, or not an even number, it's an actual integer. That means it doesn't have a point whatever when you get the square root. It's divisible by that. Therefore, it's not a prime. If there's no square root there, everything below that will tell you if it is. So 2, 3, those are easy ones to check. If it's divisible by 2, it's not a prime. And that's kind of how we would work on this problem to break it into smaller, more efficient steps. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions on that? This is a really tricky problem. This is one that I was asked in my last interview to become a senior dev. So it's not an easy problem that we just tackled. And it seems like everyone got pretty far, and you gave us some really good solutions.
Caesar brought this up, and that's just some internet solution. But the rounding thing, I'm not sure how that actually gets solved. Do you mind going over that one more time?
The rounding of
that
like
you get to, you only need whole numbers, right?
Right.
How do you make sure it doesn't select anything that's like 2 point whatever? Because theoretically there's infinite numbers in there. And so that's, you brought that up, and I was like, okay, I have no idea. So I Googled it, and some guy in the internet showed. So
well,
you go over that one more time. Sorry.
Prime numbers, as far as I know, have to be whole integers. And integers mean they don't have a dot anything, right? They're not fractions, they're not decimals, they're full numbers. So we have this trick with the for loop that we're starting at an integer and we're incrementing it by 1 every time, so it's only hitting integers. So that means if you divide, say, 9 by 2, you get 4.5. Our increment on the for loop is going to go from 4 to 5. So it's never going to check 4.5, and you're never going to get that half divisible by half, equals 0 kind of a thing. And so that's how you can kind of get around it. The rounding just works itself out. And that's the neat thing about JavaScript is you don't have to worry about these type differences that could affect that. It just kind of works. So that's really how the rounding kind of works itself out with the for loop, because we're only using integers in the for loop incrementing. So if we were to increment it by 0.012 or something every time we loop the loop, that's probably not going to be the case, or some other random fraction. So cool. Thank you for coming up here and demonstrating that for us. It was awesome. Okay, so we have one more activity in the same vein. This one's going to be the hardest one we have so far, but we have one more harder after the break. So amping up in difficulty. But these are really good problems. This one's going to take you a while, and that's okay. What we want to do is spend the first 10 minutes probably pseudocoding this, again, like we did with the prime numbers. Really think about the problem. Really think about how you can break it down into small steps and how you can figure it out. But basically, we're going to have an array of file names that have extensions. And we're going to sort those files into arrays based on whether they're videos or images. Okay? So this is kind of a confusing way to word it. In my opinion, it sounds like they're trying to, there's 2 ways you could do it. You can either sort the array, videos and images, or you could move them into separate arrays, one with videos and one with images, sorted. So that's kind of how I'd probably approach it, move them to 2 separate arrays. I think that's what they're saying to do. Does that sound right to you, TAs? Move the videos to one array, images to another. So you have a full array of file names with extensions. Move all the videos to one array, move all the images to another array. And that's what you're going to do. So you're more than welcome on this one to Google all kinds of JavaScript functions that can help you work with strings. You're going to need it. In most interviews, like we talked about earlier, you can't typically Google things, but if you're an online problem you have to solve, sometimes you can, especially if they say, go ahead and Google it. So we're going to send you out some resources that you can go ahead and Google, look for things to help you solve this problem. We'll send out the instructions over Slack as well. Give it a go, 10 minutes of pseudocode, and then we'll do 20 minutes of trying to solve the problem. We'll go over it for a bit, and then we'll go get some lunch. All right? Sound good? Cool. And TAs, could you Slack out the solution to the prime number checker? Thank you. One other thing I want to mention, sorry to interrupt everyone who's deep in thought. Next week, you only have class on Monday and Tuesday. So if you're the Monday, Wednesday, only come Monday. If you're Tuesday, Thursday, only come Tuesday. We have Wednesday and then Thanksgiving off. And then Saturday, we get off as well. So just those 2 classes. Remember that. Don't show up on Wednesday. That would be a bummer.
The next one we're due.
Hey, TAs. The next homework as in the one that's due tonight or the one that's due after this? After this? When is the next homework due? The Thursday after next. So that's the 30th? Yeah. I'll check boot camp stuff for you. Thank you. November 30th? The 29th? Okay, so for Monday, Wednesday, it's due the 29th. For Tuesday, Thursday, it's due the 30th. I know no one wants to do homework over Thanksgiving weekend. I know I wouldn't, so. What's up, Landon?
Is the array just full of string values or with properties?
They're probably just going to be strings. Yeah, it's just strings. Lots of strings with a dot something at the end. There's an example slacked out in Saturday instruction of like what the array could look like, and you can use that array to test your solution. So now if you've been pseudocoding, you might have a good idea of where you want to start. Now would be a good time to start cracking into the real code, trying to solve this problem, and we'll give you about 20 minutes to work on it.
Perfect. Okay.
Oh, yeah, so, yeah, because you don't want your function to. But you want them all. I'm curious, what is it?
I think it should fall with. I think it includes.
Okay, yeah.
That's the way you can do it. Oh wait, these get to be,
Yeah, so that will tell you that which character might be
yeah. Well, that's their break.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can use that to get signing in there. Those are just directions. These are, you know, that's not JavaScript. That's just, you can like comment it out if you want to. Yeah, so if you have this array of unsorted files, right? So perhaps read is one way to read data. So say like movie files, and then you can log it down. Then that would be a quick test. But right now the point would just be how to get that algorithm. So yeah, logging it would be one algorithm. This is something you might encounter Yeah, we can really apply for it, right? Right now, we're just working. Yeah, the simplest way is to
Yeah, the important thing is just the logic of being, we're not worried about how to display.
I have some.
yeah. Oh. Yeah, so, yeah, you're breaking it every time. Think of like how you do it. If someone gave you the staff, you can't do it. How would you do that? That's always a good way to start. You think, okay, now that I know how to do it, how can I tell the computer it's not far in what's like something.
Yeah.
Just like a given pattern.
So there's 81.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
This thing is going down. I don't know if that's correct.
I used to. Okay. I would use it. So what I did something very similar to this. I created a sorter function where you want to fuck here, I'll just show you. You're like 85% of what I did. I just created a function that.
But there's one that's a little bit better.
So I use essentially the same order where I created some, this is what I did. I created a couple more variables, variable, empty array. Sort of. So what I did is I created this empty array. I then created this sorter function right here, where I just ran if statement n, which is the parameter I just include, so that we use the same document as any of these. It'll do this. It'll take, yeah, which is my parameter. It's going to take my images array, it's an empty array, and it's going to push whatever just came in into the array. So up here, there's an empty array, just an array, nothing going on. Dot push will take whatever you take a string and it'll push it to the underline of whatever array. Obviously, this array doesn't have anything, it's got nothing in it, so it's going to push it to the front. So, yeah. So I could have done it with videos. I just took our support images that were here. So I just did it. Or
There's no need to write out all the other ones.
there's no need to write else because it's not one of these 3.0 videos. It pushes into my videos array. And then I take for loop and I integrate it for the files this array files. So for every one of these indexes, I call my function, my sorter function, and I use whatever index of the iteration as my end parameter, my end argument. And then I just multiply it. And I could have printed it up on the screen with I was going to do it later. I just
So that my code is now. Like I just I edit it now instead of I just comment it now. So it goes in my code and the
well, it's good. It's good to have them.
Yeah. Well, I was sick of getting it in work, so I just
Every single thing. Figure out what works, figure out what doesn't work. But
yeah,
that's an or statement. So if it includes JPEG, or it includes GIF, or it includes
just like the and.
yeah. Well, I don't need it to include everything. Obviously that wouldn't work if I had to. Oh yeah. Because it won't include everything. So I need it to be or. I started. I did the crystal one. This was really like I think I had the crystal one done before. Hangman was even do. I just did not have it. The crystal works. Yeah.
I click on them.
Hey, we're gonna give it one more minute, and then we're gonna talk about some of this.
So I did it really repetitively when I worked at the
Nice meeting you as well. Yeah, I saw it awesome.
And then I worked with my tutor.
Perfect. Looks great. Have a good weekend.
Basically, turn that all into. So this is what.
Oh, that's what's actually.
Yeah, this actually overrode a lot of the stuff that I had written.
I would do more writing all that.
All right, so why don't we take a few moments to talk about this? Some of you might not have been all right. One thing to pay attention to as you're going through your career is some people might finish faster than others. Some people might seem to get certain problems better than others, and that's okay. We can't all understand every problem to, the maximum efficiency or whatever. It doesn't make you any less skilled or any less cunning or any less intelligent. Just because you didn't finish this little exercise or whatever. There's something that's runs pretty rampant in the industry, I think, called the imposter syndrome. Has anyone heard of that before? Caesar, you heard of it? Every day. Yeah, I felt it too. And the imposter syndrome is basically, people like us who don't go through this formal degree program, or we don't have a master's in CS or something. Sometimes we feel like, are we even that good? Like, are we just kind of fumbling our way through and being successful somehow, or solving these problems that we shouldn't necessarily solve? And it feels that way sometimes, like you're not quite at the level that you should be, but it's not necessarily true. A lot of you will be very successful. Almost all of you will be very, very successful in this career. You know, it's going to be immensely rewarding in the long run. The more work you put in, the more work you get out. And every single one of you can do extremely well if you're willing to put in the work. And I guarantee you, some of you will feel the imposter syndrome. Doesn't mean anything. It never means anything. It's just this thing that affects me. It might affect Caesar, might affect some of the other TAs. So don't let that get to you. So that little comment, basically, if you didn't finish, it's okay. And as a matter of fact, I want to talk with someone who did not finish. And I was talking with Phil, and Phil had a really good idea of how to solve this problem. Did you actually finish it?
No, not yet.
So he hasn't finished it yet, but he has a really great solution. So Phil, why don't you give us like a high-level explanation of your solution? You don't need to give us any code. You don't need to tell us what you wrote in code, but tell us how you would solve the problem.
Okay. So pretty much what I thought was that we assign a variable to all the image extensions.
Okay.
And well, create an array. Like a first array was like image extensions.
Okay.
And it was all the images. And then the next array would be like movie extensions.
Okay.
And I have put all the final extensions. Pretty much the last 3 or 4. What do you call it? I guess like 3 or 4 characters or whatnot.
Right.
So and then right function next we'll sort through those and then place them in the right category.
Right. That's an awesome solution. Let's give Phil a round of applause. Almost a round of a hand again. I'm all jumbling my words. So I'll rephrase the solution that Phil gave us, especially for the streamers. Basically, we have these extensions. We know these extensions. We're going to put the extensions for the images in one array, the extensions for the movies in another array, and then we're going to go ahead and loop through the files we have and compare the extension on the file to those 2 arrays, and whatever one it belongs in, that's where we're going to put it. So if it's got an image extension, we're putting it in the images array. If it's got a movie extension, we're putting it in the movies array. And that's exactly right. It's exactly what you want to do. So you can see, while Phil may not have actually coded the entire solution, he's got the solution. It's just a matter of time for him to get there in code. And sometimes, it takes some debugging. Sometimes you'll make a mistake. You may know exactly how to solve it. Like he's got it solved, right? You know exactly what the solution is. You know exactly how to get there. But sometimes you make typos, or you forget a period here, or you forget a semicolon, or you do something, and it causes you to take longer to actually code out the solution than it does to think about the solution. So that's something to keep in mind. That will happen a lot. Sometimes you tackle a problem and you're like, hey, I know exactly how to solve this, and it'll take me 20 minutes, right? And then 2 hours later, you're not done yet, and you're like, oh, well, I know how to solve it. There's a lot more code than I expected being written. And that happens a lot. I do that all the time. It's just part of the job. You can't guess or estimate totally. So we're going to go over a solution. Before Jenny left, she sent out her solution, and it's a pretty good one. The class. So let me just go ahead and open up. Open up an editor. I'll copy her code. Let me just grab the array really quick that had all of the items we want to go through. And we're just going to talk about it. See her solution. All right, so we have all of these files, this crazy list of files with all kinds of crazy names, but they all have extensions, right? They all have the dot something, 3 or 4 characters, something. MP4, that's a movie. JPEG, that's an image. And a quick Google will tell you what all these extensions mean. So what she did, she created 2 arrays, an images and a videos. That's where we're going to put stuff at the end of the day. And then she has an image and a video extension. So this is a very similar solution to what Phil was going for. And in these 2 extension arrays, she put the extensions for all of the movies, all the videos, MOV, AVI, MPEG, MP4, MPG. And then in the image extensions array, You can see she has the image extensions. And then she just loops through the files real simply. She's got these nice comments, tells us exactly what's going on. She checks, hey, she uses another for loop. Hey, is the extension of the file we're looking at right now in the video extensions array? If that's true, if includes returns true, then it's a video, clearly. Otherwise, we can check if it's in the image extensions array, and if it is, then it's going to be an image. And then you have your images and your videos nicely separated into their arrays. So this is a great solution. This is a perfect way to do it. If Jenny were here, let's give her a round of applause anyway. She'll watch the stream later, right? She did a great job. So does anyone have any questions on what we've done here? Any questions on how to solve this problem? Any questions on breaking down problems? Anything else you'd like addressed before we go to lunch? Or do y'all just really want to go to lunch? So why don't we go ahead and meet back here at 1. It's 12:21 right now. Take 40 minutes. Streamers, I'll pause the stream, and we'll start it up a little bit before 1. Whatever you guys want to do, and we'll adjourn then. All right, streamers, I'm going to stop broadcasting.